morning, Bangkok! Sawadee. My name is Acacia. I'm trend strategist for Trendwatching Asia Pacific based in Singapore. And I travel the region to conduct trend seminars and workshops and conferences, speaking conferences like this one to share more about our trend-driven innovation methodology. And is very happy to be here with you today.
And I'm Victoria, and I am head of Twin. This is Trendwatching's Insight Network, and it's our global network of international trend spotters around the world. They're the ones who send in and see all of the innovations and trends that we then write and report about at Trendwatching, and a lot of their content you will see today. Alongside this, I also help train the spotters and extend this to our clients in workshops and presentations. Now, I originally was based in London, and now I'm based over in Amsterdam. So this trip has been incredibly special for me. It's my first ever time in Thailand and Bangkok, so thank you so much for such an amazing welcome. And it's also very exciting for Trendwatching as well. So we want to send a huge, huge thank you to both DTAC and GM Biz for making today happen. It's an amazing experience. And it's also incredibly exciting because, as our host so eloquently said, this is the very first of our global series of events. You guys are seeing this first. These are our trends for 2017. After this, we'll go to Singapore in just 2 weeks, and then end in Amsterdam in the end of November. So it's an incredibly exciting time for us, so thank you so much for having us.
And just to kickstart the day, I know it's in the morning and everybody is wondering what's happening, so let's start with a small interactive exercise when it comes to innovations and trends and what will my customers want next. So I want right now everybody to just close your eyes for 20 seconds and think about the #1 innovation that you think really, really changed the world in the past 20 years. The #1 innovation that you think right now, if it's not around, you totally cannot live and you totally need it to survive in your daily lives, and something that totally changed the industries and totally changed the way people live. All right, so your 20 seconds to think are up. And what did you think of? What is your answer? What is that one innovation that really changed the world in the last 20 years?
I imagine some of you thought of this, or maybe even the thing that's in your pocket right now, or perhaps this that we are all slightly addicted to and can't stop using, or even this, Uber. But when people think of innovations, they immediately tend to think of technology. You know, the newest, the shiniest, the latest thing to come out. But actually, where is the people in all of that? When people think of innovation, they do think of the new thing. And as the head of Twin, all of the innovations that our spotters send in have to be new. But actually, new doesn't always equal innovation.
And I will illustrate that point with the story of the first airplane. So if you think about the first airplane, whenever people think about, the first flying vehicles, people think about the Wright brothers who invented the first airplane. But actually, the idea did not start with them. The idea started in the Middle Ages with Leonardo da Vinci, who sketched the first idea of a flying machine, of a flying vehicle. But at that point in time, it was just a sketch. It was just a picture on a piece of paper, and nobody did anything about that. And so it remained an idea. And then came along the Wright brothers, and they actually invented a vehicle that can fly, and they actually flew it together. And at this point in time, the airplane became an invention. So from an idea, it moved to become an invention. But it's not until the early 20th century when the first commercial airplane took flight and carried the first commercial passengers that it really became an innovation. And from this exercise, we sum up that to be an innovation, you need to be able to add value to people's lives. And to create innovation simply means to add value to people's lives, to your consumers' lives. And when we talk about adding value, it's all about understanding what people need that is most important to them, and so you can add value to that. And the most famous framework for understanding consumer needs is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's just that, and we are all very familiar with the pyramid, the triangular shape, but I'm sure you've seen this image floating around somewhere in the internet. And this is how life is like today with technological change, with the way people live, with different lifestyles. Maybe people need battery life and Wi-Fi more than food. And so it's no longer adequate to just operate based on what people need or what people want, because consumers don't behave like that anymore. And that's why at Trendwatching, we propose a new methodology. We call it trend-driven innovation, and it's all based on consumer expectations.
And I'm going to run a quick exercise that will hopefully illustrate this. So hopefully you are all familiar with Uber or Grab Taxi, even if you haven't used it. So I want you to all just picture the scene. At the end of today's conference and you're ready to go on home or to your after drinks, or wherever, and you step out onto the street and you cannot see a taxi anywhere. Your driver's on strike, or the tubes and the metro is on strike, and you need to get where you're going. So you open up the app and ready to call your Uber or your Grab taxi, your taxi to get you where you need to go. Can I see a show of hands who would be willing to wait 3 minutes for this taxi to arrive? So 3 minutes. Okay, good. Now keep your hands up. What would you still be willing to wait if that extended to 5 minutes? Yeah? Okay. How about 7 minutes? You guys are patient. Okay. How about 12 minutes? Oh my God, we've got one person who's willing to wait. That's kind of interesting, because I guess if you think about just a couple of years ago, and certainly from the experience that I have and Acacia has, where we are, actually people often put their hands down at like 5 minutes. No one is willing to wait for a taxi anymore. But just a couple of years ago, people would be more than happy to wait 10, 20 minutes for a phone when they had to ring up and have a taxi who would arrive at their house. And luckily, we aren't alone. Uber did a survey that they published at the beginning of this year, where they tracked the estimated wait time of a taxi against whether that taxi was likely to have been accepted. And they found that actually people's patience had decreased. People are less willing to wait for a taxi now. And it wasn't just isolated to this one city. They did this same study in 9 global cities around the world, and they found out that actually the longer that Uber had been in a city, the less willing to wait for a taxi people became. Now this is shifting people's mindsets all through one innovation.
And that is the state of what business is like today, with the new products, innovation, services, campaigns flooding into the market every second, every minute, every hour. There's always something new. And in our line of business, we spot all kinds of innovations all the time. And the amount of new things that flood into the market every single day is overwhelming. And maybe if you look at the snow avalanche on the screen, it's not much different than the avalanche of innovations that we have to deal with, especially as business people, every single day. And the Uber example illustrated the effect that has to consumers. You see, Uber changed people's expectations on how fast or efficient a service should or could be delivered to them. And hence, people's waiting time has decreased. People's willingness to wait has decreased. And this is all about what Trendwatching is all about. Trendwatching is here to help business people understand this avalanche. What does it mean when you see all the innovations that you see in the market every single day? What kind of insights can you get out of them? And how can you translate them to create innovations that will make your brand resonate with your consumers more? But when we come to Trendwatching and we say, oh, we're a trends firm, people have all kinds of different understandings of what a trend is all about. So before we move on any further, let's be on the same page as to what kind of trends we're going to talk about today.
So most people, when I say I work in trends, immediately think that I know what color it's going to be next season and that I work in fashion. But actually, trend watching, we like things that are a bit weird and ugly, as long as they're innovative. And it's about looking just beyond one industry.
But on the other end of the spectrum, it's also not about the big macro forces. It's not about, oh, the rise of the middle classes or aging population or political shifts. But we're more interested in how are these big forces changing and shaping the way consumers behave.
And it's not just about what's trending. It's not what about the hashtag is this week or the latest Snapchat filter that's going to help you vomit rainbows. It's not just that they're trending.
And most importantly, again, it's not just about the latest technological developments. Yes, technology plays a big part in innovations, and they drive a lot of the innovations that we see out there. But there's more to innovations than just technology. And the key to that is to look at consumers' expectations that are fueling the technology.
So at Trendwatching, we have quite a set definition. We like to keep things structured, and we define a consumer trend as a new manifestation among people in behavior, attitude, or expectation of a fundamental need, want, or desire.
That is a mouthful, and we will break it down as the session goes along. So don't worry if you didn't really get what does that mean, and that definition does not really make sense to me at this point. We will explain it further. But what we do at Trendwatching to promote this idea and educate people and share more about the idea of trends and expectations, we have several channels. So number one, we write free publications. So you can hop onto our website, trendwatching.com, after this and read the latest trends that we've published on our site. I write the Asian briefings, while all my other colleagues write the other briefings in all the other regions, as well as a global version out of London.
And we also service a premium service, and this is over 1,000 clients that have access to this database containing trends and over 13,000 innovations, which itself sounds a bit like an avalanche, but they use it as inspiration for any innovations that they need to create or into inspiring their teams or their strategies.
And we also do live trend events such as this one. So in the past year alone, I've made more than 20 presentations and workshops and traveling across Asia, working with brands like MasterCard in Singapore, to Facebook in Indonesia, to Johnson & Johnson in Mumbai, to help them understand consumer trends better and as well as create better innovations for their consumers.
And despite all this global speaking and trend spotting, we actually have a global offices as well. So we have Acacia, who's based in our Singapore office. I'm in our Amsterdam one. We have our head office over in London. And also we have branches in New York, Lagos, and Sao Paulo. And despite, well, as well as all of these offices, our reach is actually far greater. We are in over 50 countries thanks to our spotter network. So this is the Twin network. And it's this group of over 3,000 of the most trend-savvy professionals that we can find who help us see the innovations and the trends that are in their own backyard. As we will explain later, and as Henry will explain in a minute in his film, we look at innovations at the heart of our trend spotting. It all starts with looking and analyzing these innovations. And we realized that this was quite an interesting methodology. And we wanted to share this with more than just our spotting network. So at the beginning of this year, we published Trend-Driven Innovation, which is an extensive book that goes really, really deep into what this methodology is and actually how can you use it yourself. How can you become that great trend spotter and that great trend user and innovator? Now, we have Henry Mason, who is one of the authors of that book, and he was supposed to be here today, and unfortunately, because of family reasons, he can't, and he is very, very upset about it. So he has recorded a video clip of him explaining this trend-driven methodology, because he is essentially one of the gurus of it. Him and 3 of our colleagues authored this book, and he has subsequently presented this methodology in over 100 countries over the course of the last couple of years whilst they were developing it. So you really are hearing from the expert now, and I will hand over to Henry and his video recording of the trend-driven innovation methodology. Sound?
We'll need the
person,
sound to be on for
but
the, yeah.
I'm delighted to be able to join you via this video link to introduce the main idea behind our book that we wrote last year that Victoria has touched on. Because, you know, as she's introduced Trendwatching, right? So we've been running this company for the last 10 years, and we've been looking at innovations, we've been looking at trends, and increasingly over the past couple of years, our audiences, our paying clients, our free readers, our trend spotters, they've been turning to us more and more and saying, where do these trends that you're writing about, where do these innovations that you put into your paid services, into your report, how do you do this? How do you come up with this? And more importantly, how do I use that? So last year, we spent quite a lot of time with my colleagues Delia, Max and David. We put our heads together and we pulled apart our methodology and we put it back together again in this book that you can see here behind me, Trend-Driven Innovation, published by Wiley over in New York. And writing this book was a really exciting experience for us because it really showed us, really uncovered the heart of our methodology and how you can use it to become a better innovator. Because let's start at the beginning. Okay, I'm sure not many people in this room will disagree with me when I say that business today looks a little bit like this. The avalanche of new products and services coming at you from all angles. Your customers are raising their expectations on a daily basis. Your competitors are raising their game. There are new competitors coming into the marketplace. It's a pretty tough place to be in a business environment today. But as we looked at this more and more, we realized that if you actually strip it all the way back, actually business success is all about having the answer to this question. It's not a simple question, right? It's quite a small question. That is, what are your customers going to want next? If you can have a good answer to this question, you're going to be okay. Right? If you can anticipate what your customers are going to want next, you will be okay. And when we looked at this, we realized that actually the conventional wisdom about how to answer this question is actually wrong. Okay, because there are two ways that people have historically answered this question, what are my customers going to want next? Number one, you can ask your customers what they're going to want next. Right? You can do market research, you can host focus groups, you can talk to them. And that is, we all know what Henry Ford and Steve Jobs said about market research. Right? Customers don't always know what they want. So another way, right, of answering this question is you can study your customers, you can live with them, you can really get close to them, and you can try and be struck with a bolt of insight about what they're going to want next. Right? And that's great, but it's expensive, it's hard. Or, of course, over the last decade, we've seen more and more people get very excited about data. Data will show us what our customers are going to want next. If you just have enough data, you will know what your customers are going to want next. You'll be able to spot patterns. You'll be able to uncover correlations. Right? All of those approaches, they have their place, they can be useful, right? But we realized when we were writing this book that actually we answer this question in a very, very different way. And that is through this idea that our unit of analysis, if you like, our way of answering this question is not to look at your customers, not to study them, not to live with them, not even to look at their data necessarily. It's to look instead at the businesses that they are lavishing love and attention on today. Yes, you heard me right. The secret of understanding what your customers are going to want next lies not in your customers themselves, but in the businesses, in the innovations that they are lavishing love and attention on today. And by innovations, we could mean new startups, new products and services from existing businesses, or new ad campaigns. What are people putting into the marketplace that are exciting customers in other industries, in other regions. Right? And that is our counterintuitive answer to the question of what are your customers going to want next. Because we believe that actually trends emerge as innovators address people's basic human needs and wants in novel ways. Okay, and that is a very, very short sentence, but there is a lot going on there. So I'm just going to take a few moments to unpack this sentence and really talk you through the building blocks of our model of trends. Because the first part of our model of trends is this idea that we live in a world of constant, perpetual, relentless change. Right? We all know this. Social change, economic change, political change, right? All of these forces of change that are sweeping through the business to consumer arena. Right? Just look behind me. There's this Shanghai skyline taken 20 years apart. Everything's changed for those people, right? For that space, for the people that live within it. So yes, we're obsessed with change. But people, amid all of this change, right, the people that we are concerned with, our customers, ourselves, we are still fundamentally still human. And that means we have the same basic, pretty universal, pretty stable human needs, desires, wants and values. And these are the things that don't change year on year, decade on decade. They barely change millennia on millennia. That is why the great works of literature still apply. Things like the desire to appear successful and attractive to those around us, the desire to connect with one's friends and family, the desire, when it comes to the consumer arena, the desire for reliable information about the products and services that you are about to consume, the hope to get those products and services at the best price, right? To get the right product at the right time, at the right price. This has not just emerged from nowhere. This is a basic, fundamental, universal human need and want that has been with us for generations. It's going to be with us for the next years ahead. But of course, like, coming into the marketplace on a daily basis, as we've looked at, are new innovations. Right? So new products and services, new startups that come in, and what those innovations do, why those innovations are so important, why innovations are what we look at when we're looking at trends, is because innovations, new innovations, they create points of tension and they create emerging expectations among consumers. I love this image of the hamburger. We've all been there. You walk into a fast food restaurant, right? And the picture on the sign promises you this big, juicy, tasty burger. You open the box, and it's a little bit disappointing, right? But once you've had that juicy burger, you can never go back, right? Once you've experienced something, it's very, very hard to go back. And what's really exciting is because of this world that we live in, because of transparency, because of awareness, you as a customer don't even have to have experienced necessarily the big juicy burger to feel the pain if you don't have it. Right? Customers in Bangkok, customers in Greater Thailand, they know about the iPhone. They know if they're not using Amazon, IKEA, Uber, Starbucks, whatever it is, they know that these businesses exist, and when they go into a local business or a substandard business that doesn't deliver them that great customer experience, they will be upset. It will feel like the soggy, floppy burger on the left there. So that is why we're so focused on innovations. And if you look at the model of how we captured this in the book, this is how we captured this model. You have your basic needs and wants. You have your drivers of change. This is what everyone is always focused on. What's changing? Right? But what you need to do as an innovator is to try and pitch your innovations into that sweet spot. Right? To take account of people's basic needs and wants, but also think about what's changing and land your innovations in those sweet spots. And that really is what we are here to do today, right? Because tracking trends should help you meet and ultimately surpass customers' rapidly changing expectations. Okay, so you guys are all here really, from the most of you are here from the telco industry, right? And we are going to share with you a whole number of examples, not just from the telecommunications agency, not just from Southeast Asia, but why should you care about those innovations, right? Why are innovations such a powerful signal about future trends that you can use to anticipate what your customers are going to want next? Right? And I'm just going to introduce why this is so important with a story of a couple of innovations, right? Because they illustrate this phenomena that we call expectation transfer. Okay, so think about Uber. Right? I'm sure many of you have used Uber. If you haven't used Uber, grab Taxi or one of the ride-sharing apps that are available to us. Right? Because even a few years ago, hailing a taxi, it was a difficult experience. You had to walk out onto the street. You had to hope that you hailed a taxi in time. You had to have cash. If you didn't know the city, perhaps the taxi driver was taking you on a roundabout route to increase the fare. Right? It was not a great customer experience. But now you've used Uber or a Grab taxi, you open your phone, you press the button, you see how far away that taxi is, you know it's safe because it's all recorded in the app. You don't need cash. You watch the driver arrive. You know who he is. Okay, it's a great experience. But once you get out of that taxi, you don't just put that experience in a box marked transportation and forget about it and go on with your daily life. Right? You will start to apply that same expectation about customer experience to other areas of your life. So that is why we see opportunities for other innovators to apply that same thinking of one-touch customer experience, one-touch convenience in new industries. Right, so here we have an example from France, the Darty button. So Darty are like Best Buy. They sell consumer electronics, fridges, TVs, microwaves. And what they did is they created this small button where if you are a Darty customer, you can purchase this button. It's 30 euros, about 40 US dollars. And it's connected to Bluetooth. You bring it into your house. It's connected to your customer profile. So it knows the products that you've bought. And if they are connected objects, Internet of Things enabled, if your device breaks down, instead of having to call up Darty and wait on the phone and go through the phone menu, right, you just press that button and they call you back, right, on your terms. This is like the Uber for customer service for retail. This is a great customer experience, right? But we see opportunities for this to go into other sectors as well. So over in the US, this is the Alice button. And this is made available to hotels. And what hotels can do is they can program one function for you based on what they think they have the capability to deliver. And they can stick this button in your room, so you as the guest with one button can press this. Call for housekeeping, call for room service, call for an iron in your room. Whatever that is for the hotel. Again, one-touch customer service applied in a different industry. And again, we see this again and again and again. Amazon, famously, last year in the US, released their Amazon Dash buttons. So these are small, again, Bluetooth-enabled buttons that if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can stick around your house and order washing detergent, you can order razor blades, you can order coffee for your coffee machine. And so when you run out, at the moment you realize you've run out, instead of having to go online, pull out your phone, open the app, right, add this to your shopping basket. No, you stick this on your washing machine. The moment you run out, you just press the button and it adds it to your shopping basket and orders you some more. And of course, this started in the US, but this is not just relevant for US consumers. Right? Earlier this year, just a few weeks ago, Amazon are extending this beyond the US into the UK, Germany, Austria, and I'm sure it will be coming to Thailand soon. If not via Amazon, via another retailer. Right? Because you've seen that this is working. So anyone in online e-commerce could see what is happening and mimic this, copy this. Right? But this is not just about copying what's happening in the US. Of course it's not. Right? We see local innovators applying this same idea of one-touch customer service, one-touch convenience, right, to local needs. So Gojek over in Indonesia, like Uber, but with motorcycle taxis, right, Ojeks, they were well ahead of Uber. Uber have just started doing Uber Eats, right? But Gojek, even last year, they saw this opportunity that customers would be conditioned to expect one-touch services available at the touch of a button, right? And so last year they added this whole suite of services, beauticians, masseurs, cleaners, that you could order through the Gojek app. So it's not just what's happening in San Francisco, let's think about what we can copy about this. Innovators in Indonesia are ahead of of Uber, right, and in applying this trend. Right, and finally, just wanted to give one example. Of course, the mobile industry is not immune to this, right? And we see examples of innovators in the mobile industry, again, tapping into this same customer expectation for one-touch convenience, right? A one-touch button. So this is the Flick, and this is a button created in Sweden that successfully crowdfunded earlier this year. That says, you know what, when you're sitting in your car, when you're around your house, why should you have to get out of your phone and then navigate to the app in order to do certain functions? So they created, again, this small button that you can program, you can connect it with your phone, you can set one function that you want to have connected to this button, the different colors as you can see, and you can stick them in your car, you can stick them around your house, and you just press that button, and it's like the Uber for whatever you want on your phone, right? So we've seen there different industries, consumer electronics, retail, FMCG, different regions, Indonesia, France, Sweden, right? The point is that once you have seen an innovation coming into the marketplace, once that has conditioned consumer expectations, right, there will be opportunities for other innovators to apply this same thinking and create new products and services for your customers. So having seen those few examples, right, the question you should be asking yourself, sitting here right now, should be, maybe I'm not just competing against other telcos. Maybe I'm not just competing against other telcos in Thailand or other companies in Thailand. Right? You are competing against everyone. You're competing against WeChat, yes, but you're also competing against the customer service of Singapore Airlines, right? The entertainment of Red Bull, the design of Apple, the community of Airbnb, the speed of Google. No matter what industry you are in, telco or not, you are competing against the best in class, right, for customer experience and customer expectations. So, hopefully that has given you a short introduction as to why we use the innovation as our unit of analysis and why we think looking at innovations is so important. So we started this short session with this slide and said the business environment today is very tough. Right? It feels like an avalanche of competition hitting you on a daily basis. But we believe if you know how to look at that avalanche, if you know how to process the forces that are bearing down on you, actually within that very force contains the seeds of opportunity. And that's what the book is all about. That's what trend watching is all about. Right? We believe that watching trends, by looking at innovations, helps you turn this overwhelm into opportunity. So I just want to end with a short quote from Steve Jobs, right? Of course, you're talking about innovation. How could we not finish with a quote from Steve Jobs? Right? Because Steve Jobs famously said, I don't believe in market research. As we said at the beginning, customers, they don't know what they want. Our task as innovators is to read the things that are not yet on the page. And we believe that this approach to trend spotting, looking at innovations as our unit of analysis, helps you do this. Because you don't have to look at things that are not on any page. You can look at the things that other innovators are showing their customers and read what is on those pages and use those insights to write their own. And so that ladies and gentlemen, is trend-driven innovation. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the day with Victoria and Acacia. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. So Henry there answered probably the biggest question that we always get asked as a trend agency. Our clients constantly say to us, we check the trends that are in our industry. We know what's going on. Well, we say, actually, because of this phenomenon of expectation transfer, you need to look beyond that. And exactly as Henry said, you aren't just competing against people within your industry. Expectations from consumers are not confined within one industry only. Consumers don't live in industry silos. They will take their expectations with them from industry to industry. So you are competing, scary news here, but you're competing against every game-changing brand. Every brand that is best in their class at whatever they do, they are your competition. But that is where this idea of trends and the expectation economy that we will be diving into in more detail today can help. The second big question that we are constantly asked is, surely it matters if the innovations that you look at are a success or a failure? What's the point in looking at innovations that eventually don't succeed? Well, I'm going to illustrate that actually the short answer is no, and the longer answer involves a story about 3 mobile phones. The first phone is the Black phone. Now, this was launched back in 2014, and it is a phone that is entirely end-to-end encrypted. So every single thing that you do, you communicate, and you put through this mobile phone is completely private. And it was launched by a company called Silent Circle, using kind of NSA-level security. The second phone is Fairphone. Now, this was launched in, where I'm now from, in the Netherlands, and it is a phone that is entirely fair, I guess. That sums it up best. So it's made without conflict minerals. It employs people with fair welfare. It is generally just a better phone in terms of the source of where it comes from. And it was launched by crowdfunding back in 2014, and they've just done a second round of funding earlier this year to launch their second version of this phone. And this is the final one, Project Ara. Sorry, there's some sound.
Oh, shit.
Project Ara was launched back in 2015, and it's a Google project. It's a modular phone. You can swap in and out the bits of the phone that you most want, whether that's more battery life, whether that's a better camera, whether that's better speakers. It's an entirely customizable phone. Now, let's be honest. Are any of these phones going to be in your hands or pockets in the next year? Unfortunately, I am as addicted as most people are to my iPhone, so I won't be owning one of those. But just think what knowing about these capabilities can do and demonstrate into what consumers could then begin to expect. Next time I drop my iPhone, which unfortunately I did do a couple of weeks ago running for a bus, and the screen smashed, and I immediately thought back to Project Ara. How simple life would be if I could just swap in a new screen, rather than having to go back to the Apple Store, spend $70 to get a new phone screen fitted. So even knowing about these innovations, I'm never going to own it, but knowing about them has changed my own expectations. And just to demonstrate the idea of the failure, actually just a couple of weeks ago, Google has actually put this whole Project Ara thing on hold. So actually, it hasn't succeeded, but it still can change customer and consumer expectations. And then we look at the new wave of phones that are coming out. So this one was from Caterpillar, I should say. Now, this is a construction company, most known for construction boots, diggers, like machinery for building sites. And they've now produced a phone that has capabilities of using thermal imagery to see through walls, see into buildings, for construction workers to be able to do their jobs better. Again, just knowing about that can change your expectations. Or the 360-degree camera on a phone. This was launched at CES at the beginning of this year, and it's been designed to then make films available for your Google Cardboard or your VR headsets that we're all predicted to have in the next 2 years. So just, again, think about these expectations of just knowing that these technologies are available. Because once you know about them, the phones that you have will unfortunately begin to look a little bit like the sad, floppy side of the burger. And what's interesting about this idea of expectations is actually they increase. They build and they grow and they intensify. This, as a metaphor, sums it up quite well. So that was gold medal winner back in 2012. Now at the beginning of the 20th century. So now we're more forgiving of human feats, right? That expectation is increased quite a lot. But, we'll forgive humans and their capabilities. But just think about that in terms of technology and how rapid people have become to expect more and more and more. And now, even when you think back to the Uber example that Acacia and I talked through this morning, and actually how Uber would only need to be in a city for, a year in order to change people's expectations. It doesn't take 80 years anymore to change a consumer's expectations. So just to summarize what Henry said. So yes, the world around us is changing at an incredibly rapid pace. That avalanche of innovations are coming and are going to impact the consumers and you. But actually, people and their fundamental basic needs and wants and desires don't really change month on month and year on year, even century on century. So actually, by rooting your innovations within these basic needs of consumers, you can begin to satisfy them. And by looking at this new unit of innovation, by looking at the way in which brands are better serving these basic human needs and wants and desires right now, well, that then allows you to find that sweet spot for yourself. You can then notice where consumers' expectations are heading, and you can avoid making the fads. You can avoid making the novelties and the more of the same. And you can focus on actually how you can innovate to create better innovations that fulfill these expectations and maybe even become the next expectation-raising, game-changing innovation that we will be presenting on this stage in years to come as the new Uber or the new game-changing innovation that's changing consumers' expectations. So now you know and have had a really good overview of the methodology in which we work in. It's now on to the trends and seeing how you can use this information to actually begin to innovate for yourself. So when Acacia and I are presenting these global shifts and the trends that are impacting your consumers in the years to come, I want you to kind of bear in mind where actually could this trend impact your business? Could it actually help you then innovate for an entire new business model, an entire new business vision? Could it actually help you create a new product or a service or a new marketing campaign? Where is it most actionable for you? And then who? Who is this trend most ripe for innovation for? Not all trends are right for everyone. So it's actually thinking who within your customer base or your future or potential customer base could this trend become really, really powerful for? And also, we've put in these light bulb slides. These are kind of thought-provoking points of the day for you to write down, actually, how could this trend help you? And the innovations that could really inspire you or your team when you go back to your office. Because, yes, business today is that avalanche of information and innovation. But we're going to equip you with the skills to actually be able to go back to the office tomorrow, take a grasp of it, take a handle on it, and actually use this information in productive and exciting ways.